Good evening and welcome to the December 9th, 2021 Parks and Recreation Commission special video meeting. I am Jody McCarthy, Parks and Recreation Commission Chair. In accordance with Proclamation 20-28.10 and the Governor's Extended Safe Start Order, tonight's Parks and Recreation Commission meeting is using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. The Zoom video of this meeting is being recorded and will broadcast live via Zoom and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel later this evening. City staff and consultants Steve Dew and Emily Moon are participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Other public audience members are listening to the meeting by telephone or via the internet. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones. Will the city staff please call the roll?
Chair McCarthy.
Here.
Vice Chair Struck.
Here.
Commissioner Cohen.
Here.
Commissioner Birkenwald.
Here.
Commissioner Westberg.
Here.
Commissioner Markson.
Here.
Commissioner Burstein.
Present.
Thank you.
Commissioners, before we start the business of tonight's meeting, I will give us a few rules to help the meeting run smoothly. If a commissioner has a question, please use the raise hand feature. I will do my best to recognize commissioners in the order in which hands are raised. Everyone will be asked to limit themselves to one question and one clarifying question, if necessary, so that each commissioner has a chance to ask a question before a commissioner is given another chance to ask a question. Additionally, prior to speaking, please state your name for those listening in on the meeting. Tonight's agenda will not include in-person public appearances in accordance with Proclamation 20-28.11 and the Governor's Extended Safe Start Order. However, individuals wishing to speak live during the appearances portion of our meeting may do so by telephone or using the Zoom teleconferencing application. Provided, however, they register their desire to speak with the city admin staff by 4 p.m. today. Our city admin staff will call on you by name or telephone number when it is your turn to speak. This is the opportunity for anyone to speak to the Parks and Recreation Commission. All remarks will be addressed to the commission as a whole and not to individual commission members or staff members. If any person makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or becomes boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the commission, I may request that the person leave the meeting. When it is your turn to address the commission, be sure to speak audibly and state your name for the record. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. I will provide you with a 30-second and 15-second warning when your time is about to expire. City staff, is there anyone who has signed up for appearances that wishes to address the commission?
Chair, we have 4 appearances tonight. First up, we have Rita Moore. Give me just a moment and I will let her in. Rita, we're ready when you are.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm a Washington Native Plant Society forest steward. I'm also a land and water steward with the King Conservation District and a forest steward. I've seen Upper Luther Burbank Park for many years now. Upper Luther Park is forested open space park peacefully where walkers, birders, and recreational users coexist. In addition, it provides excellent wildlife habitat for birds, insects, and other wildlife. The geography consists of a steep canyon, perennial stream, wetland, and sandy, silty, easily erodible hillside soil. As our city grows in population, our limited open spaces become even more valuable. We cannot afford to lose even a small part of them. Over the Over 100-year-old native trees with native understory survive in this park. While walking in the tree's shade, one is removed from everyday hustle and bustle. Thousands of hours of paid and volunteer effort have been logged, removing invasive non-native plants and planting native trees and other native plants. A highly active, large, and ever-expanding mountain bike skills area is not compatible with other uses of this small open space park. I have been using, and as I said, enjoying for 22 years. I was distressed when I originally saw the small bike area years ago in the early 2000s. The huge illegal growth of this area over the years, especially since COVID-19, is beyond the pale and totally unacceptable. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Okay, just one moment. Next up, we have Bharat Shyam. Just one moment, Bharat. We're ready when you are.
All right, are you able to hear me? I don't know what this, something's in my camera, I guess, so whatever. So can you guys hear me properly? Hello? Yeah, you can. Okay, great, thanks. I've lived on the island for about 25 years and I have family members who have done a lot of training for native plant areas. And I've watched people like Friends of Luther Burbank save Upper Luther Burbank Park from becoming a place full of apartments. And I'm talking about the same situation that Rita Moore is. And specifically, you know, I also spent a year in these 25 years living in Copenhagen, where more people commute to work every day riding a bike than all of North America. And I saw how they use parks for bike skills, because I know I hear a lot of discussion that this is going to be a bike skills park now. And bike skills, the way I saw it was to help kids learn how to use bikes safely while respecting pedestrians and respecting cars. And it was a much more organized area than what has developed in Upper Luther Burbank Park, where it's basically become free-for-all digging and destruction. I actually went and used measuring tape and measured. You know, I have the details of how much land and how many trees have been affected. And recently they've been cutting multiple trees that have basically been killed from all the digging and destruction out there. But if you do decide to make this stunt jump area, which is a better name than bike skills, then I would urge you to think through what it means to have stunt jumps for older teens and teens. Specifically, I think it will become a regional facility because it's, you know, there's already some description about the stunt jumps on the web now, and it will just, you know, it'll stay on the web and people can come and there will be a light trail nearby and there'll be people from different places. I would suggest that the commission should do a trip, either individually or together, to other stunt jump areas like Duty Park, that's in the region, and see how much effort is put into the infrastructure there. There should be places with parking because people will come from off island. We should think about daily trash pickup. I've picked up large trash bags full from that area multiple times, and you know, there's some beer cans that I find. You know, there are there's weed stuff. There's just trash, you know, that I pick up all the time because I walk in all the parks on the island. They should definitely forbid digging because there were extensive digging tools
30
out there.
seconds.
And sure, yeah. You should expect powered bikes, electric bikes to show up, and I've already seen them there. There should be policing. There should be cameras that are monitored. And so please plan to make this well endowed as a stunt biking facility, if that's what you'd like to
15
approve out there.
seconds.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for your service, including all the staff in the Parks Department. And we're very grateful for all of your work and for the Parks Department. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, next up, we have Sue Stewart. Just one moment. Sue, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, hi, good evening. I'm Sue Stewart and am serving as president of Friends of Luther Burbank Park right now. You're aware the city closed the BMX course due to extreme environmental damage by island youth. The kids were not satisfied with the less daring BMX course, so they made it their own illegally. Our organization is grateful the city finally closed the course this fall. There remains an urgent need for input from a larger island community on what comes next. Friends of Luther Burbank Park has authored a white paper where we are sharing with your commission, the city council, and other attentive park staff a series of logical recommendations in hopes that if this new amenity must be, that it protects the harmony for all of us who value this open space park. I've lived by Upper Luther Burbank Park for 42 years. It's my daily walk. I was stunned during the November 16th Zoom meeting when city staff and the consultant, Mike McIntyre of Action Sports Design out of Texas, promised youth all the mountain bike skill bells and whistles they can stuff into the space. The newly exposed area has no resemblance to the small bike track formally documented in the Luther Burbank Master Plan. So strict boundaries are going to be needed. Luther Burbank Park's history has been full of pipe dreams since it became a city park. Marinas, housing, an aquatic center, a school, playgrounds, and a sound transit garage. The string of assaults got so bad that in 2012, Bruce Bassett signed a city resolution confirming adherence to the Luther Burbank Master Plan as a natural park for low impact use only. The resolution lists its natural beauty. I'll send you a copy of the resolution. I have it right here. And the fact that the forward thrust bond designated it as a nature park. Right now, the bike skills area under design are mountain bike skills for Upper Luther Burbank Park. Can that be low impact? It does not sound like it from what we've heard.
30 seconds.
We ask your cooperation as initial designs are shared. As you know, if you build it, they will come. Let's not build an attractive nuisance that just does not fit in to our beloved open space park. Thank you. Have a good holiday season and thanks for your service.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Amanda Clark. Just one moment. Amanda, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yes, I'm a member of the board of the Friends of Luther Burbank Park, and I would like to address two issues about the potential bike skills area in Upper Luther Burbank Park. I think one thing to consider is liability. Mountain bike parks do have many accidents. I mean, most of them, of course, are minor. You get some bruises, things, or you get some broken bones, but you can have very serious accidents. I'm wondering how the city is planning to handle the potential lawsuits that could come about from a very serious accident. I know that the city is self-insured, but I don't know how much that would cover. I don't know about just having signs that say ride at your own risk, if that will take care of things. If the city somehow has waivers that every rider must sign, how do those get to the riders, especially people who may just show up, things? has the difficulty level of this park been considered? Duthie Hill Park, which is a very large mountain bike facility, has a number of different trails of different skill levels from, say, to compare to ski trails from the bunny slope to the Black Diamond. We can't have that certainly in this park. Who will this park attract? If it's built for the more skilled riders, I suspect that younger riders will still want to come. How is this going to be determined, and how is this going to be monitored? I also would like to talk a bit about funding for this. I know that it's received what I'll call a fairly high score in the PROS plan, but as far as I know, no funding has been allocated for it. If this is to be built, where will the funding come from? The general fund, or will funds from other recreational or parks projects be taken from those and put into this mountain bike area? So I just would like you to consider those. I appreciate your listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's our final appearance, Chair McCarthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the first item of business is to review and consider approving the minutes from the November 4th, 2021 meeting. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 4th, 2021 meeting?
So move.
All right, Commissioner Westberg, may I have a second?
Commissioner Birkenwald will second.
Okay. There's a motion by Commissioner Westberg and a second by Commissioner Birkenwald. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones. Will the city staff please conduct a roll call?
Chair McCarthy, if I might, this is Ryan Daly. Commissioner Burstein has his hand up.
Sorry, that was an error. Let me take it down.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, I'll call the roll for the minutes. Chair McCarthy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Struck,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Birkenwald,
Aye.
Commissioner Westberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Markson,
Aye.
Commissioner Burstein.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Motion passes and the minutes are approved. The second item of business is the PROS plan, and we welcome Jason Kintner, Chief of Operations, and Consultant Steve Dew.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jason Gittner, Chief of Operations. Pinch hitting this evening for our beloved City Manager who had an unexpected family emergency this afternoon and had to step away. So myself and Steve Dew, Meryl, Ryan, and Paul from city staff are all here, and we're going to tag team this effort this evening to get this plan to the final draft stage. So with that, I will ask Meryl to go ahead and start sharing the screen. We have a short presentation, and then we will get into the bulk of the discussion this evening. I'm going to go to the next slide, please, Meryl. So as you can see on the slide in front of you, we began this endeavor in 2020, and Leap the Frog has grown up. We moved from 2020 into 2021, and now our new tag and slogan and marketing for this PROS plan is PROS Plan 2022. So you will see our updated frog logo as we move forward, and the PROS plan is now officially called the 2022 PROS Plan. Our goals for this evening we have two goals for this evening. One is to review the PROS plan edits, the preliminary draft edits that have been provided by the commissioners. Staff has provided a matrix and has sent that out to the commissioners. Hopefully you all have a copy of that handy as we go through it this evening. There's 35 pages of comments. We're going to hopefully skinny that down fairly quickly, but you should have that ready. So we will review those PROS plan comments this evening. And then the second piece is as we move towards the handoff to the City Council, which will be in January of 2022, we want to talk about the handoff memo that's coming from commissioners that will go to the City Council. So those are our two primary goals this evening. A reminder to the commissioners, pros plan is updated every 6 years. 6 years comes and goes very, very quickly. So the Parks and Recreation Commission will begin preparing for the next 6-year pros plan 4 years from now. And 4 years might seem like a long time, but it'll be here before you know it. Again, a reminder that the plan will guide the work between now and then and identify priorities as we move forward. Again, and next slide, Meryl. Perfect. Again, one of the second goals this evening is to do the handoff memo to the city council. We're looking for that memo to come from the commission's voice. It's important to remember that the plan doesn't compel action, but gives recommendations to the council. The council helps set the work plan for staff and the year in and year out work that is accomplished. But the priorities of the commission should be included in that memo. So what things is the commission looking for? What priorities are those? Those are okay to include in the memo. But again, the plan's not going to compel action. It's providing recommendations to the council on what we would like to see it done over the course of that 4 to 6 years.
Jason, I might pop back one slide. My internet went wonky for a second and I
That's all right.
scooted ahead too much. Just one
We
second.
missed the goal number 1, which is the perfect
Big one.
The big one.
Okay. Here we go. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Again, so tonight's feedback, we have a matrix that's been sent out. A reminder to the commission that all grammatical edits, minor edits, page numbering, things like that, that has been identified by the commissioners, has been sent on to our consultant, and that will be updated in preparation for the final draft, which will be in front of the commission in early January, which will go in the handoff to the council in mid to late January 18th, I believe. Tonight, we would like an early consensus from the commissioners to the no items in the matrix. So we have the matrix identified with the yeses to talk about, but there's pages 7 through 35, I believe, are all no. So we'll make sure we do, we'll look for commissioner feedback and whether or not there's an exception to those no's to include. If we can move past that, if there's something that needs to be pulled out, we'll add that to the yes discussion. And then we'll talk about the remaining substantive comments this evening. Again, we're looking for those substantive comments and what can be value add to the pros plan. Really, your internet is a little wonky. There's one last slide. It's all right. I have it memorized while you pull up the matrix. Again, the goal is to get this draft to our final draft version that will be cleaned up and sent out to the commissioners at the end of this year, end of the month, because we have a commission meeting in early January where that will be the final draft review from the commissioners. That will be where we fine tune the memo that gets handed off to the council. And then we will be looking for a joint PRC and city council meeting on January 18th to discuss. So with that, I will pass it back to Chair McCarthy. Merrill has the matrix pulled up in front of us. If you don't have a copy handy, it's on the screen in front of you. I think the first order of business will be to go through the no's, and then once we can work through that, we can come back to the yeses.
Thank you, Jason. All right. So let's start with the no's. Does anyone have any of the no's that they feel very strongly about? And we can talk through those few ones. And if not, then we will get agreement on the no's and then go on to the yeses. So I see that Commissioner Cohen has his hand up.
Yes, Don Cohen. I've got about a half a dozen that I would like to have considered for discussion. I have them written down here by number based on the left side. Mm-hmm. I'll just read them first so that staff can take them down. I've got number 65, 85, 113, 123, 139, 170, and 173.
All right, do we have those noted?
65, 185, 113, 123, 139, 170, and 173?
Yes, and yes, and these 2/3 of them relate to the wayfinding signage thing, and then a couple of other ones that I wanted to follow up on.
Okay, well, how to address that? So in terms of the wayfinding ones, what is the primary concern with the wayfinding?
This is Don Cohen. You asking me for the policy issues or specific things in each of these?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to understand because the pros plan, we're not, we're just doing a recommendation. It doesn't mean that these things are going to happen. So the fact that they put them in the know, that's what I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, no, I feel, and I've sent multiple notes to staff about this in response to each time this happens. But they've improved some of these concepts, but I'm still very concerned that the way that some of these are drafted, it will run the risk of being a recommendation that there ought to be signage at every trail intersection, no matter whether it's Pioneer Park, Island Crest Park, or any other place. And I think that will detract from the experience, and that we have to have some significant caveat kind of language. They have put some language in a few of these about appropriate as to scope, type, and I can't remember what the third one was, but I don't think that it's adequate in each of these, in my opinion.
Jody, excuse me if you're interrupting. This is Commissioner Westberg. Just a suggestion, maybe we should call on Commissioner Struck to see if he has other numbers that he wants to add to the list.
Yes, yes.
And then go down the list.
Okay.
Go down a comprehensive list. In my case, I have my hand up. I don't have a specific ones I want to raise. I just had a general question for clarification, which is,
okay,
if there's nothing in the staff response column, what does that mean?
If there's nothing in the staff response column, then let's take a look at it, because that might have just been an omission on our part, but let's make sure.
There's actually quite a few of those. So.
Right. So if you're looking at the far right-hand side, revisions submitted, Steve, I believe that these are the grammatical stuff that are going to be captured. Non-substantive items will be captured in the final draft plan, correct?
I think you're right, Jason. Jesse went through with a literal red pen and marked a bunch of these up so that Steve has something to work off of. And I'm assuming that if they're not referenced here, it's because it was a pretty simple edit that she sent along that way. Good question. Thank you, Rory.
all right. Commissioner Struck.
Yes, thank you, Peter Struck. So I just have two items in the no column that I would like to discuss, I guess, in order. And those numbers are 127 and 165.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's go quickly through these no's and get the ones that have been listed as a concern, and get some discussion from the commissioners on whether we want to look at it and then make an adjustment or move on from it. Does that, Jason, you've got them written down. So the first one is 65.
So this is Don Cohen. So that's mine. This is not about the wayfinding signs. There's a statement in here that I questioned, which is neighborhood parks are the backbone of the local park system. I asked whether that was correct, and the answer was that there was not going to be any change made. But if you look on page 33, the neighborhood parks are the Dragon Park, Dean's Park, First Hill Park, Roanoke, Rotary, and Wildwood Park. And I guess it didn't strike me that those parks are the quote backbone of the local park system, unless I don't understand what's meant by local park system.
So Commissioner Cohen, if we fine-tuned the local, if we found an alternative description for local park system, would that satisfy what you're looking for?
Well, I guess, Jason, it depends. What's the point that you're trying to make here? I mean, neighborhood parks are no more important than any of these other ones, either the bigger ones or the smaller ones. So I guess I don't understand why these are the backbone of whatever the park system is. Maybe you can take care of that by redefining local park system, but I didn't understand it. When I was making suggestions here, there were a few policy oriented ones like the wayfinding stuff. And then there are a few that I was trying to read this as if an average new reader was reading it. And I didn't understand what that meant because of the wording and the description on the next, on page 33 of what the neighborhood parks were.
If I can, Jason, I can respond on that. That particular wording, I would suggest editing out. It is qualitative narrative that isn't necessarily required to be part of that definition. So I would just strike that language. That's my recommendation.
That would meet my concern, certainly.
Commissioner Struck.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Let me take it down.
Okay. Okay, great. 65. Check. What's the next number? That was the only one that I could remember.
85 is the next one.
So this is Don Cohen again. So staff did do some revision to add this language of appropriate as to type, scale, and number, but it's still at the end, it still says most trail junctions should provide low impact navigation aids that identify connections, et cetera, et cetera. I personally am not sure that that is true because it depends on what the park is, how big it is, how many trail junctions there are, and what the impacts of sign proliferation might be. So I was struggling to try to find something that wasn't the word all, because staff was agreeable to that, but something that didn't say most. Maybe many is better. I don't know. That was my concern about it. And again, you hear my theme on this point coming through, obviously.
Okay, so I'm looking at actually the staff comments on this on the right-hand side there, Marilyn. It says that we will submit the change with the second round of edits. So I think that we can go through and try and mimic soft.
That's not the one that refers to, I don't think, though, Jason. That refers to, well, you may be right, but I didn't think that related to making more changes to this part on the bottom, but I could be wrong.
I think Jesse is suggesting that we submit this new language here, and Commissioner Cohen is suggesting that it might not quite be there yet with the word most instead of all wasn't right. Most might not be right either. Is that what I'm hearing, Don?
Yeah, that would be my view if what you said is true, that this is sort of a substitute.
What about changing most to some trail junctions shall provide low impact navigation aids that identify trails, connections, and destination options?
Well, that'd be okay with me, this Don Cohen again, but I'm not sure that would be okay with everybody else.
How about as appropriate trail junctions should provide?
Yeah, that would do it for me also, because it ties in with the previous sentence.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Can we get some show of hands from commissioners? Commissioner Westberg?
Well, I was just going to say in response to Don that yeah, my sense is in reading this that we're not trying to proliferate signs all over the island and at every trail junction, that there really needs to be a qualifier in here that looks at it and says where you need something, where we get some response from, particularly some response from the public that there's confusion about, where a trail goes or where it connects with something else, then becomes a good candidate for a sign. So however we need to word that. I recall when I was on the Open Space Conservancy Trust that we actually had people that got lost in the northwest quadrant of Pioneer Park. And we ended up approving some very subtle but apparently necessary signs at trail confluences to help guide people through that trail network. So it's hard to guess exactly where they're going to be needed and how big or how visible they need to be. But I think clearly we need something in the plan that speaks to the fact that we will need some signage.
Mm-hmm.
May I respond to that one?
Yes, you can.
With all respect to Commissioner Westberg, that's not what this says now, in any of these things about wayfinding. And I don't believe that's what's intended by the staff and the consultant. I believe that what they have in mind is a comprehensive set of signage that would, to recommend to the city council, that would give the city council the authority, if it chose to exercise it, to have a whole bunch of signs in a whole bunch of trails at a whole bunch of intersections, whether or not anybody had been lost. I remember another one where there was somebody who was lost down in the right as you go across the bridge in the northeast corner of Pioneer Park. I mean, we've had this discussion for years. I can't remember, Jason, whether you were part of it. And my reaction always was, imagine that 7 miles, 8 miles from downtown Seattle, you can feel like you're lost that in a wooded area. But anyway, I won't go into
Okay,
that
so
part.
Jason, can you speak to that, please? Is that the staff's intent is to sign up the city, all of the parks?
No, that's not the intent, is to sign up we're not going to sign up all the parks in the city. I don't think that's the intent behind it. I tend to like the language suggested by Councilmember Jacobson as appropriate. I think that actually is in balance with our application of signage. There are areas where it will be appropriate, and there are areas in Pioneer Park in particular that we don't want to see signs. So I think as appropriate is the right term here to use, personally.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay with me. I think that my point will be hopefully a little even clearer as we go to the next couple of ones that are on the list.
Okay. City Council Member Jacobson. You're on mute. Oh, Marie Bender, you had a quick comment?
Yeah, just a suggestion. I think to Rory's point, what we're really struggling with is as needed to provide sufficient direction, which is a lot of words, but I think the intent is let's make sure people know how to get where they're trying to go. But the other thing is I might suggest that we incorporate into this the idea that not everything needs to be a physical sign. I mean, we certainly could develop an app that would show everybody every single trail and use GPS to tell them how to get from here to there. So maybe incorporating the concept that it doesn't necessarily need to be physical would be a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Wayfinding doesn't have to be a sign. Now most people have a smartphone and can benefit from an app. All right, what is the next number?
113.
Okay, hold on just a moment. that as revised is okay for me, with the exception that trial should be trail. In the second to last line.
Good catch.
Yeah, again, I'm not keen on the overall subject, but this one to me is the revision is okay.
Okay, great. What's the next number?
123.
So this is Don Cohen again. This is one that we don't see yet. And this may be where to try to capture some of the things we're talking about tonight in Commissioner Westberg's comments. Again, I'm not, but as I can't comment specifically on it because that apparently is a work in process.
All right, let's go to the next one.
139.
I was 127. Do you want to go in
Oh,
order? Or you just want to
yeah,
take
let's
all
go
the
in order.
downs first?
Thank you. Good catch. 127.
Okay, Peter Struck. So this is regarding chapter 9 and kind of the opening paragraphs for open space. And as I read it, they look to try to define open space versus park. And then I got to thinking, well, what about open spaces that are within established parks, and what's the priority and so forth? And shouldn't there, at least when I was reading, I thought there should be kind of that some delineation of that. And so the response from staff is basically does that, but then the status was no changes were made. So my suggestion, and I think that what some of the speakers said tonight kind of talks to this point. I was just rereading on page 50, and maybe it's something as simple as adding just one word. And if I can read the second sentence here, it says, open space may refer to public properties that are exclusively natural areas or portions of larger parks that are managed as natural areas. And maybe if we just say add that are separately managed as natural areas, it kind of creates that delineation. Or you could actually, probably add a full another sentence to make that same point. But that's the idea, was to make that differentiation a little bit stronger, because clearly when I first read it, it didn't jump out at me by any means. And I think it's a important concept or aspect that we want to delineate.
So in the comments section, the reason why they weren't going to change it is because any changes to the open space into another usage would have to be done by an act by city council. So they already are protected.
But then I think we should just state that, because I don't think if you asked 10 residents, they would know that. I think, and again, that's what we're trying to do with this pros plan, is to, help guide us. And so it just, it would, to me, it would eliminate some questions.
Okay, I think I understand the context with this and how the two spaces are delineated and managed. And I think, Steve, we can work on some suggested edits for the final draft regarding this specific area based off our current practices. Because as Commissioner Struck said, we're practicing this now and how we manage these spaces. And so I think we can add some language based off the intent from Commissioner Struck.
Commissioner Westberg.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add the thought that these areas aren't separately managed in the sense that they're managed as part of the park, but they're managed to a different set of standards and a different set of priorities and different work plan. So I don't know how you'd address that in the language, but to me, that's the distinction that we're trying to draw here. Is a park can have open space areas as well as developed areas, and how those areas are managed, the approach is different.
All right, so I think we captured that. What's the next one?
139.
Jody, can we go back just for a moment to 123, the one where staff said revisions were going to be made? If you look in the draft plan, chapter 8, page 90, here's what I was referring to. I don't know if people have that in front of them. If you don't, this is what's being said under trail signs and wayfinding. Coordinated signage plays an important role in facilitating a successful trail system. A comprehensive and consistent signage system is a critical component of the trail network. It's necessary to inform, orient, and educate users. Such a system should include trail identification information, orientation markers, safety and regulatory messages, a unifying design. The following signage types should be considered and consistently implemented throughout the network: directional and regulatory signage, trail user etiquette and hierarchy signage, continuous route signage for route identification and wayfinding. I'm going to skip a few here. Mileage markers or periodic information regarding distance to areas of interest, warning signs of upcoming trail transitions, interpretive information regarding ecological, so forth. It does, the next one does say add QR codes to signs per Marie's thing. This is what is saying that somebody, I mean, this is like for, Mount Rainier National Park. This isn't for Pioneer Park or Island Crest Park or something like that. So if.
Right, but Dawn, it says considered at the very first of it. So it's not saying that it should be put there everywhere. It's just saying it should be considered.
Well, it says considered and consistently implemented.
Right. But like the considered to me is the most important part of that. And if we do decide, if the city does decide to go with it, here are some things that could be done. It doesn't mean that they're going to do every single one, in my opinion. It just means like these are things that could be done.
Well, I disagree respectfully. And because I can read language and you can read language, it doesn't say could be considered. These types of things could be considered where appropriate. It doesn't say that. It says should be considered and consistently implemented. So this is to Commissioner Westberg's comment that, if somebody is having problems getting around, that would be a trigger for some things. That's not what this is talking about. And I would say, I would ask if Jason Kittner or Steve have any comments on that. And it isn't good enough for me, no offense, to say, well, this isn't really intended to have a lot of signs and everything. If it's on here, it's a potential to be used by not just this city council, but some future city council, some future park department or something like that. And I'm concerned about that.
Understood. We do want to have consistent signage. So where signage is appropriate, we do want to have consistency amongst that signage throughout the park system. It needs to be familiar. If someone's in Pioneer Park or maybe on one of the right-of-way trail systems that connects to a park on the south end of that, and they move to the north end of that look and feel, the message, what to expect on that sign should be consistent and usable for someone using our park system. That's the intent behind it. It's not to proliferate signage throughout the park system. We try to be very mindful. COVID aside, there was a lot of signage in parks during the early stages of the COVID pandemic, but we always are concerned about sign blight in our park system. It's something we don't want to be heavy-handed with. And so I think your comments are spot on in terms of making sure that we are consistent in not oversigning our parks systems, but I think the consistency piece is the important element of that element. Steve, anything else to add?
Thanks, Jason. Again, the broader intent of the overall PROS plan is to be strategic in nature and lay out the considerations and issues to address over time, and that it's not strictly a cookbook that if it's in there, you must do steps A, B, and C. The intent is that it offers considerations and recommendations for further consideration. So to Commissioner Cohen's point, I would suggest in that specific section he referenced, deleting the consistently applied element of that sentence to downplay the language in that section and then adjust it to be could consider, should consider as appropriate, to Jason's point.
Yeah, I was just writing down almost the exact same revisions that you just stated.
Great. Sold.
Great. All right, let's go on to the next section then.
Next one's 139. So this is the use of the term hydric soils. The response from staff was that that's wetland type soils and there is no other substitute kind of word. Again, I'm reading this like somebody who doesn't know anything about this, which was true for me. And I would suggest maybe revising to say a specific type of soils, paren, known as quote hydric or something like that, so that somebody reading it doesn't feel sort of like, what the heck is this? Like it's something I'm supposed to know.
All right, did you get that, Jason?
Yep, we've got it.
Great.
The next one of mine was 170. I can't remember, Peter, if you had one before that.
165. Peter had 165.
Yes, thank you. 165. So this is in chapter 11, page 117. It's under the athletic fields. And so my question was really around the use of synthetic turf and kind of what I understood. And obviously the staff comment says you're wrong. But that brought up a second thought. So, one of the projects is at Island Crest Park, that south field, which is now, I guess, dirt and natural grass, is they're going, the plan is to, or project is to turf that or artificial turf it and so forth. And I had the benefit, maybe others were there last night to listen to the city's climate action plan efforts and so forth. And I began to think about that issue, and what is the climate impact of this kind of impervious surface or the synthetic turf and so forth. I don't know what it is, but I looked at the specific project for the south side of Island Crest Park. It's project PA 0160. And it is of the 50, or actually the 90 projects in the 20-year plan, it's the only one that got a 0 under environmental, which is the lowest grade it could get. So there must be some issues there. I think, but I agree with that we should, the way to probably handle this best, I don't know, I'm looking for direction from others, but perhaps in the handoff letter is just to kind of highlight that, this is one that, does have some environmental issues that we should just be aware of. And I understand we need to do a balance here, but we'd be, adding, several hundred, maybe over 1,000, probably over 1,000 square footage of impervious surface. And I know that, generally we haven't been really keen on doing that. So I'm very happy just to put it in the handoff letter as just kind of an FYI to council and, let them kind of wrestle with it.
Okay, Commissioner Westberg.
I forgot what I was going to say. I think, well, perhaps it was an idea that perhaps the reason it scored 0 on environmental is putting in synthetic turf does not have a environmental benefit. It's not being done to pursue an environmental goal. It's being done to pursue other important recreational goals. So, and I'm sure there may be other projects on that list that don't have an environmental benefit either. I'm not sure, but anyway, that was my comment.
Thank you. I would just like to say that it is still even though it's not considered permeable, it is permeable. So it's a bit of a misnomer to have it as a negative because it's considered an impervious surface when it's yeah, but I'm fine with having it in the handoff memo to the council, but I do think, like, you know, trying to vilify the synthetic turf because it's an impervious surface in the parks is not quite true, because it is permeable, but it's obviously not the same as natural grass, sorry.
Yeah, as I said, I was just kind of sensitized to the whole issue last night and
No,
so forth. I think we should just point it out.
Nope, I don't have a problem with that. All right, what's the next one?
170.
Okay.
This is mine, Don Cohen. So this one is page 120 in chapter 11. It's the use of the term councilmanic bonds, and staff's response was that that's defined back in an appendix. I was reading this as somebody who knows a little bit about municipal bonds. I didn't know what councilmanic bonds were. My bad, I guess. So either referring back to wherever a definition is or using a different term, because to me it was meaningless to me. I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, I think why can't we just reference Appendix K in there for people to understand? I don't know what a manic bond is either. Okay, what's the next one?
173.
Commissioner McCarthy, I have a comment on the bond.
Yes.
I believe that there are two types of bonds, the ones that are enacted by legislatively, or excuse me, by the public in a bond issue such as the one we had for the schools in 2014. And there are ones which the council does. And I think councilmanic is a term of art. And there's certainly lots of manic people on the council. I'll concede that to Commissioner Cohen without any argument, and I'm one of them. So that may be, I think that's a term of art, and but BO or somebody can.
We can certainly add, so we can certainly reference, we can provide the definition in the appendix. It is a term, it's a form of revenue. It's got a definition to it. We can certainly include that.
Great. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next one.
Let's see, 173. Let me just look at this. In light of what the revisions are that we're making earlier, this one is okay with me as revised.
Great, great.
And thank you for permitting me to go through some of that stuff in some detail. Some of it's fairly, important concept to me and to some other people.
All right, so we've gone, that's all of the no's. Okay. All right. All right, so now we're on to the yeses. Woohoo. Okay, I just have a comment about the first yes. We're not, and it's about the library, but the library isn't part of the pros plan. So I feel like we don't need to talk about that tonight. Commissioner Struck, that's your comment.
Right. So yeah, you're right. It's technically, well, it's not part of the pros plan. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm not gonna argue that point at this point.
Okay, great. All right.
I think that
next one.
No, well, hold up. I think that what I would like to do is, again, put it a couple of sentences in the handoff memo about it as a potential, just alerting the council that this, could be a potential work plan item in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And, we do want to, make sure that we're taking care of the library. It just is not part of this project.
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
So the next one is mine as well. This kind of just talks about funding. And I just thought that there could be a little bit more discussion on the funding. So like in the 6-year plan, there's about $17 million of revenue or funding sources that are identified. They're not described at all, and I wouldn't expect any detail on it, but I just think that as I kind of say in this comment, that if there can be a little bit more information, well, how did that number is arrived at? You know, is it a combination of a bunch of stuff? That's fine. I just think that it just shows that it gives a little more complete process as to kind of what we're going, because I think that as we go through this, you know, we've got a potential pretty big capital investment, and I think the more information we can provide about it, I think the better off we're going to be.
So, Commissioner Struck, just to clarify, so are you asking for like what potential? So I'll use the Luther Dock project as an example, where we have a number of different grant opportunities that are helping fund that project as revenue sources for that project. Are you looking for staff to identify what potential grant opportunities we've identified for?
I wouldn't even go that specifically.
Okay.
I would just say that, you know, that we're aware of, you know, several grant opportunities that we think we have a high probability of receiving, and what it may, and maybe the whole 17 million is all grants money. And if it is that, we should just say that.
Okay.
If it's something else, we should say that.
Okay, that's helpful. I was a little worried that we were gonna have to identify every potential grant.
No.
No, that's better. Okay.
Let me interject just briefly. I think it would be beneficial for the council and therefore the public to, at some point in your handoff memo, point out that there are major needs for to restore or to maintain our parks in the kind of condition that we as a Parks and Rec Commission recommend. Because I think that daylighting that issue is important for a couple of reasons. One is that I think it will inform the public when the parks levy comes along, if in fact that parks levy is greater than the current one, which I think there's a reason to believe it will be, that to start setting the table for it. And I think that council people will discuss it. I certainly will. And because that's something that's upcoming in the next year or so. And I think it's very important that we begin to educate the public on that subject.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's a very good point. And also just to let the public know how much work the city staff does in finding this money, these grants and other ways to fund our parks. And I think is important for people to know as well.
Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay,
so now,
so item number 3.
sorry, Peter, let's make sure that Jason has got his thoughts
Okay.
together for that one so that he doesn't lose his train and then.
Yeah, so we will put together some high level context for the revenue lines that we have identified as these resources. We'll provide perhaps we'll add like a brief descriptive paragraph that just sort of at a high level identifies where those revenues are coming from.
Great.
Yeah, and really what, Jason, I think what that does is it really serves two purposes. One, I think at least to me, it demonstrates, hey, we're on top of this. We've got an ask of 41 million. We've already identified, with some amount of certainty, 17 million. And then also, kind of from a fundraising perspective, if you've ever done fundraising, whatever your goal is, when you announce it, you always want to say, well, we need to raise 10 million or 10,000. Oh, we've already got 5,000, right out of the chute. People, that's a good thing, I guess, is the best way to put it. It says, hey, we're already on our way. So,
Yes.
So going to item number 3.
Wait, so sorry to interrupt you, Peter.
Okay.
Commissioner Westberg has a
sorry.
comment.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify too on the subject of revenues that that the revenue tables that aren't currently in the plan will be added, the ones we reviewed last month. Is that correct, Jason?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so there will be additional detailed information on the types of revenues that are expected, not grant funds, obviously, because we can't project those, but those will be included and will, I think, help provide a more complete picture.
Thank you. All right, now you can go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. So not number 3 is kind of on this in the same vein, and I think that Councilmember Jacobson really just spoke to it, but this kind of goes back to the idea that we've got 50 projects in the 6-year plan, and when you read it, it's the terms are used like urgent, largest ever, but there's always, well, why is it the largest? The question I would ask is, why is it the largest ever? What's going on? And I just kind of say here, is it due to, deferred maintenance, higher priorities for non-park projects, poor planning, backlog to do to COVID, combination of the above, or whatever? So I think we just talked about it, but I think, if you can kind of give the reader and the council, for that matter, kind of just a sense of, why are we ending up with this number? I mean.
So I just want to say, Peter, it's a 20-year plan. These 50 projects are not just going to be done in the next 6 years. This is the 20
the 50 projects are in the next 6 years. The 90 projects are in the 20-year.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at giant thing. Okay.
So anyway, I just think, again, my recommendation would be that there be just a, it's probably a couple sentences or whatever, but just to kind of help orient and provide the narrative.
Okay. Commissioner Westberg has a comment.
I agree with Peter's point. I had flagged that actually for inclusion in the memo, because the memo makes many of those same statements without providing any context as to why we're in this dilemma. There is some language in the plan that speaks to when all the facilities built and the fact that they predate ADA and some other things like that, but I'm sure we could expand on that to provide the context that Peter was talking about, both in the plan itself, but also I would recommend in the memo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, can I go to 4?
Yes.
Thank you. So the thought in number 4 is kind of accountability. So the question I would ask each commissioner, just say, how will you know if this plan is successful or not? And without answering that, I think that probably the best way to approach that at this point, and it's kind of mentioned in the staff comments, would be to, in our handoff memo, is to recommend that as part of our work plan annually, that there be essentially a progress report that would be provided, as to how the pros plan is doing in terms of the projects and, are there other issues that are coming up and so forth. So it's more of a living document as opposed to something that, we kind of put on the shelf and, I guess in 4 years, we would kind of dust it off as we prepare for, the next one.
So are you thinking like an annual review of this to see where we're at?
Yes, and that's really what's the staff suggestion. They, would be they're saying we could review progress annually as part of the ongoing PRC work plan, and that could just be in the handoff memo.
Yeah.
Commissioner Strug, I think that's, I talked about this before. I think that's
right.
A handoff memo is a great spot for it. I think this would be prudent of the PRC would be to review this. You'll start to find the rhythm to these annual work plan updates as they sort of lead into the biennial budget preparation and adoption. You'll see these capital projects as part of the city CIP and recommendations for CIP. So I think there's a nice nexus there, and it's a good piece to put into the handoff memo.
Okay, thank you. Moving right along. So item number 5 is really just more kind of the same idea. So I think at this point, I think we've already discussed that, so I don't really have anything more to say on that one. Number 6. So here I just kind of raised, and this was in, I guess, chapter 1. you know, and we have representatives tonight, but just kind of this whole idea of having the Arts Council, Open Space Trust representatives attending meetings and so forth. And I think that the staff response in terms of putting something in either the chapter 3 or the handoff memo is fine. I just think that we should just recognize that, you know, we're trying to, you know, coordinate with these other groups as best as possible. And we might have got a little bit of a late start, but I think we're on board now.
Great.
Let's see here. So number 7. Oh, this is the impervious footprint. I think we've already talked about that. I think we'll be fine on that. So on number 8, so in the chapter 2, there's a whole bunch of data on race and ethnicity, which is fine. But then it kind of, the language says something about, well, we may consider this or something like that. And I just thought that perhaps we could have a little bit stronger language that, you know, we would apply it as applicable, or, you know, as appropriate or something like that. Because it's kind of like, well, why go through, and I guess I asked myself, why go through and collect all this information if we're not going to use it? And because the language said, well, we may consider it. Well, that's kind of like, so that would be my thought there. It's just to kind of have slightly stronger language to say that, yeah, we'll help it. Will help us help this data will help inform us of how to, you know, provide diversity and inclusion, and et cetera, et cetera.
When Commissioner Westberg.
This is in relation to this item that Peter has brought up on page 13, and that the language currently says, and it should consider, and which is fairly consistent with language used throughout the document. Are you looking for something stronger there, Peter, that more intentional, or is that adequate? The paragraph in question is, the city should consider how it could best provide recreational opportunities and programs and information that is accessible and able to meet the needs of all community members.
Maybe it should be, or just think of this, the city should consider how this data can best, or could help, how this data can help provide, best provide, blah, 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 something like that. I'm at this point, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see a problem with that sentence.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stronger than might or whatever it is, and it is consistent with language used elsewhere. But if there's a better way to say it, or a more intentional way to say it,
that's fine.
Okay, let's go on to the next one.
I think
this is
I
Don.
get to be quiet for a while.
This is Don Cohen. The next one is me, number 9. I think the suggestion that I made at the end of my comment, given our previous discussion, would be a good one to have it read: the community supports appropriate system-wide signage and wayfinding improvements. So I think that just inserting appropriate after supports.
Yep.
Would be consistent with what we did before.
Great. All right, next one.
So number 10, this is Don Cohen, is mine also. If I am the only one who had trouble following these maps, then I won't spend any more time. I had some difficulty with them, and I was suggesting that I didn't know whether there was an easier way to explain a little more, but I may just not have spent enough time on them. So if nobody else feels that way, we don't have to discuss this one.
I do think that, explaining what a travel shed is might be a good thing to have for people looking at them. I sort of get the idea of what they're trying to say, but we might want to have some definitions of park language for regular folks so they understand what it means.
Chair McCarthy, if I could add, yeah, I can add some language to that section to define what the term travel shed is and the process used to generate those maps, just for improved clarity.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Don't you, Don?
Yes, I do. And I also made an observation in the stuff that I put in there. I don't know if it's all in here, that like where I live, I'm more than a quarter mile or a half a mile from Pioneer Park and Island Crest Park, but I think I'm real close. You know, I mean, I'm all in favor of everybody being close as possible, which would require acquisition of more property, as is acknowledged here. But I guess I don't have a problem with having maps that show quarter mile, half mile, mile, and 3 mile with some things. But it struck me that was a very aspirational thing, to have everybody within a certain distance that to me seemed pretty short. But that's just an observation, not to change anything. But what Steve said would meet my need for more explanation on number 10.
Awesome. Okay, let's move to number 11 then.
Okay, hold on a second here. This one, I don't have a specific. This is another thing. This is a section on page 73 in chapter 6. It's a long paragraph that says wayfinding. Somewhere, I think the concept of appropriateness should be dropped in, but I'm not sure where. So maybe among the staff or Steve, they can, if people agree, then that would be consistent with the other discussions we've had of the same subject.
Okay, that seems reasonable to have it all be streamlined. Sorry, Jason, I can't see you anymore.
Yep, we're good. I think we're going to item 12.
Okay, Commissioner Struck.
Thank you. So this one is kind of like we talked about last time. So on the trans sites, several national sources, my suggestion is to have a stronger statement. So right now it says may frame future considerations, so forth. Maybe what I would do is to cross out may and say will help frame future considerations in program and activity development. Slightly stronger, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So on 13 is mine as well. So this is looking at the trails, and as I was reading it, as I say there in the comment, my comment, you know, is there an appropriate metric to establish a standard for our trail system, you know, in terms of usage, proximity, et cetera, et cetera. And staff comment talks about different things, and probably have to kind of have this on for a future thing. But at the very end, it says, let's talk about this item with our consultant at the PRC meeting. So maybe, I don't know if Steve has any specific comments, or if we just kind of say, we'll just kind of put this in the parking lot and say that, yeah, it's something that, you know, the city/staff will be working on over time, but, you know, we'll just leave it as it is in the pros as it right now.
Yeah, so with regard to trails in particular, I think applying numeric standards in particular are a little more challenging, because the way we tend to think about trail systems and trail networks with regard to standards is one geared more toward connectivity, much like a road network. So when, you know, community is building out and developers are building roads, or the city is building roads to facilitate that development, The roads aren't measured by how many miles per 1,000 people or how many miles per capita are provided. It's all about connectivity, destination to destination. So I would suggest utilizing a similar train of thought for the trail system, but that does leave some ambiguity that the commission and staff need to feel a little comfortable about. And that ambiguity is, well, what are you connecting? When does the connection happen? Under what conditions? And et cetera. Is it all in park system, off-road right away, or is it including road right away, et cetera? So the notion of connectivity for trails as the metric is something that we would suggest. Reactions or comments? Jason, you want to add anything?
No, I think you summed up really well. I do think that level of service is going to be something that comes up later on too, I believe, in regards to the park level service. I think it's something that needs to be evaluated and defined at a future point in time. And, as we develop those metrics and however we frame that, whether it's as Steve mentioned, the connectivity piece, that's something that can be added into future pros plans, but we've got to do that work as a different item in the future. And the same thing says for, we'll talk about the parks maintenance standards as well, but I think it'd be a future work item for sure.
Okay, moving on to number 14, it's kind of in a similar vein. So this, the sentence, as I've written there, it says approximately 65% of the city has reasonable access to recreational trails. And so my question is, well, how is reasonable access being defined? Is it the 1/2 mile watershed threshold? Is I just think that we should define that term. So I don't know, again, I guess since Jesse's out here, Steve, maybe you can have some thoughts as to what we should do.
Yeah, so I definitely can reframe that, because the notion as written about reasonable access is reasonable within the 1/2 mile. So we can just clarify the language to specify that the walk shed or the travel shed network for the trails is calculated based on the 1/2 mile. And that many people live within the 1/2 mile of an access point.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Don Cohen. Steve, so then how does that relate to number 10 above that we talked about already with small parks, community parks, regional parks, the maps, and there's 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile and all that?
So the trail watershed map is built on the same model. So access points for trails are defined, and then the mapping connects the dots at those distances to create those travel sheds. So it's the same model that's just applied to the trail network.
Okay, thank you. So if we're going to specify the 1/2 mile, that would be clear from my point of view too here.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. So for number 15, I agree. I think we shouldn't list any groups because we will miss somebody. So just say we have many groups.
Fine with me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to 16.
Yeah, so 16 was, I was just looking at figure 10.3. And I just wondered if there was comparisons with other data sets, and the staff response was that not really at this point. It's probably perhaps a good idea, but it'll be something for the future. So that's fine. Just, I guess no change.
Okay.
Number 17. So this idea was kind of thinking about, should we try to do some more cross-referencing between specific projects where that are in the 6-year or the 20-year plans, and Let's see here. I guess evaluate what cross references could be added. You know, I just think that sometimes, you know, where we're strictly descriptive, if we put some specifics behind it, it's helpful. But if it's going to be a big issue or whatever, I'm happy to pass on it as well.
Commissioner Cohen, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't put my thing down.
No problem. Okay, Commissioner Westberg?
One possibility, when I was looking at this, one possibility I thought about, and I don't know how difficult it would be, Jason can maybe comment on that, would be to put a column in the CIP table that indicates what goal number the project supports. Just as one way to cross-reference. That seems to be where we have the most specificity in the plan is the chapter 4, the goals. We have all those all enumerated, and then in the CIP. But I don't know if that gets, Peter, at what you're talking about. And I certainly don't want to create extra work.
I mean, that's a good idea, Rory. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but I mean, that's a way to accomplish it. But you're right. I just don't know how much work it is. And again, I think this late date, I don't want to create a lot of work, but it was just a thought I had.
Steve? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead,
Initial
Jason.
thoughts, Steve?
So to that recommendation or suggestion, I would say, having done that for different jurisdictions in the past, it is a bit of a bear kind of task because as you can imagine, any one project would likely touch on multiple objectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It creates its own headache of tracking, et cetera.
Mhm. Councilmember Jacobson?
My only suggestion would be that because I believe it's in chapter 11 where we go into detail about, future projects and things, is to simply point people in that direction, since many of those projects will, be subject to priority decisions by the city council and not, keep it as simple as we can by just pointing in that direction for those things. But that's my thought.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Cohen, the next one is yours.
Okay, this is, this relates to page 113 in chapter 11. And if this is just me, then don't worry about it. I'm still having problems understanding these weighting factors. I don't have a specific suggestion other than at the outset of having a short explanation keyed directly to one of these, because this weighting, I just have never really quite been able to internalize it. But if everybody else is okay with it, you can go on.
Does anybody have anything they want to add to that? Okay, so
I'll live with it the way it is then.
thank you. Okay, let's go to 19. Oh, sorry. Sarah, did you have something you wanted to comment on at all?
Oh, no, I just switched where I was muted from. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So number 19, I think this is my last one. Finally.
No, it's not, but.
Well, yeah, no, it's the last yes. So when I read this, I was thinking a lot about sponsorships and a couple other kind of funding ideas. And I see the staff comments about those. And so I'm fine just to leave it as is.
Perfect. Fantastic. All right, Commissioner Westberg.
Okay, and it could be that, well, I have a question, and it could be that based on the answer, that this language becomes mute, but as as we've seen tonight, the bike skills area remains an issue of contention among various groups in the community. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the last Zoom meeting. So my thought was we needed to put the language we put in the report in this plan related to that should be as direct and as intentional as possible to reflect what is actually underway concerning at the city level by that issue. So the plan on page 72 in chapter 6 says the existing BMX style course at Upper Luther Burbank Park has been a source of local tension in recent months. A modified solution for this type should be guided through consultation with a professional track designer, which is underway apparently, to explore opportunities for a potential relocation of the bike skills area. Then it goes on to talk about a pump track, etc. And then on page 122 in chapter 11, there's a somewhat different statement. The bike skills area at Upper Luther Burbank Park was temporarily closed and is being assessed when this plan was developed. It's a popular amenity, and if the bike skills area is no longer feasible at Upper Luther Burbank Park, and other locations should be considered. So I wasn't trying to change, in terms of my comment, I was not trying to change anything concerning policy or approach, but really just reflect the fact that this process is underway and there's three phases to it. One, a decision has to be made that this is an amenity that the city is going to provide. Two, where is it going to provide it? And three, under what conditions is it going to operate? Now, I guess I'm going to ask Jason the question I have. Has in fact the decision been made that the city is going to provide this amenity?
So Commissioner Westberg, that's a great question. So I think in you reading those two different sections tonight, I think one of the challenges we had is that this pros plan has been drafted at different points along the way, and things have changed along the way. And I think that's what you're hitting on as well. When the city made the difficult decision to temporarily close the bike skills area in Upper Luther Burbank Park, it was to evaluate the bike skills area in that area in Upper Luther Burbank Park to see if it could or could not fit within that open space area. We did hire an expert to come in and evaluate that. And what the expert has determined is that we can design a bike skills area as outlined in the Luther Burbank Master Plan within that footprint. It will be done differently in the future. It will be done under the careful watch, eye, and design of our experts. And there will still be opportunities for public engagement, public participation, volunteerism out there, but it will be under the watchful eye of the city along the way. We're moving away from the youth being able to do this work on their own. That said, when we first started this process, we did not know what the expert was going to say. If the commission and the council would still like us to pursue other areas for a bike skills area, then that is likely a 2-year endeavor that we will have to go through, including quite a bit of public comment, feedback, and determining where that best location is. As we've identified in this pros plan process, the youth that this bike skills area is serving is currently underutilized, or their voices are maybe not quite as heard as other pieces or other services and amenities that we offer in our park system for that age group. With that in mind, we've made the decision to continue to work towards seeing if we can find out if the bike skills area can work in Upper Luther Burbank Park. We suspect we can. The early indications from the consultant are that it can be designed to fit within that area within specific requirements. So I think if the commission wants us to evaluate whether or not it should be moved elsewhere, that should be part of the recommendation that gets added to the work plan that goes to the council for recommendation to see if the PRC should be exploring that opportunity and what it looks like, what the public engagement along the way would be to explore alternative possibilities for the bike skills area. But for now, the direction that we are heading, the feedback we're getting from the consultant is that it will fit under careful watch and eye and design guidelines of the city in that area. And you can have the open space and the bike skills area coexist.
Well, I don't think that we're in a position tonight, given the time constraints, to take on the broader question of whether it should be relocated or not. I assume that in the interim, based on the consultant's recommendation, it would continue to operate in its present location.
Correct.
What
after we've had a chance to reestablish the proper boundaries, it's surveyed so that stays there, and we've had a proper design completed and construction completed in that area.
Okay, so what I would suggest is we'd sort of table that discussion of whether it there's a better place for another meeting. But what I would suggest is that the language then in the plan, particularly in chapter 11, be modified to reflect where we actually are in this process.
Mm-hmm.
So that the plan is showing that going forward, we're going to continue to use that area, but under a changed configuration and changed operating conditions.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen.
Yes, Don Cohen. I did attend that virtual public meeting, and I commented to staff and after it, because I was surprised about how far down the road it had gone to, similar to what Sue Stewart's public comments were tonight, that it seemed like a decision had been made to do this and not really to be looking somewhere else as alternatives. So I'd favor adding in something that at least encourages the city to look somewhere for alternatives, not just if it's no longer feasible at Upper Luther Burbank Park. This is on page 122, because feasibility is in the eye of the beholder. Is it feasible? You mean, can it fit in there? That's not the whole point, as we heard tonight, and as any of us who've walked there understand. So I wouldn't hesitate to be more affirmative in one or both of those places that the bike skills area is mentioned in here, to say that alternative locations should be evaluated.
Okay, Commissioner Struck.
Yes, thank you, Peter Struck. Just to tag on kind of from Commissioner Cohen's comments, I'm kind of in the same vein that I also was a little bit surprised from that meeting, that I thought the charge was to be a little bit more global, but apparently that was not the case. But my thought is, we can probably do some wordsmithing in the pros plan to reflect some of that, but also I think that it should be in the handoff memo. And again, this is subject to the commission saying yes, but should it be something where we would want to tackle that on behalf of the council, in our 2022 work plan? Because I think, as city staff said, that it's going to be a long process, and I think we, if anybody's closely followed this situation over the last 6 to 12 months, I mean, there's a balancing act that needs to happen, but I think it's part of that will be very robust community engagement.
Chair McCarthy, if I may, if the commission wants to add this in the handoff memo, I think that's okay to seek council direction on when to include it. I would question the commission, though, about the work plan for 2022 and 2023. It is very heavy, as we've identified here in our capital facilities list. We have some very critical projects on the near-term horizon, including our overwater structures, including some other rather potentially large public engagement processes, depending on some master planning processes that are on the future as well. So I think it's okay to include in the memo. I would be cautious about putting a date specific to it.
Mhm. I think that is.
And that might not sit well, but I think it's important to understand the full work plan before we commit to a date for it.
Mhm.
So Jason, this is Commissioner Stark. So, so what is your take? So kind of, I get the work plan burden issue, scarce resources, et cetera. So, but kind of to your earlier comments, then is the thought that city staff will just kind of move ahead on the current location and so forth. Or, I mean, I guess I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, that's a good.
Understand kind of how, are they going to move kind of in parallel, or are they going to, I don't know.
So I think it can be done in parallel. So I think it's important to note that the funding for any improvements at the Upper Luther bike skills area will require council appropriation. That's not currently in our capital work plan. Based off of the recommendation that comes from the consultant, at the end of the year, we will likely be in front of the council Q1, Q2 next year to talk to them about that appropriation request. I think in my conversations with the consultant, I do think that the two recreational opportunities can coexist between using the open space passively and having a bike skills area in a confined space that is surveyed, documented, recorded, and under close watchful eye of the city. I think that is a short-term option that we should pursue. And then what you're referring to here is a long-term recommendation or a long-term strategy about where is the best fit for a bike skills area if this is a service the city wants to offer in the long term. Where is that located? I think that is a larger conversation that should be had in terms of when's the right time, what's the appropriate timing to have that discussion with the community once you understand what else is on that work plan. So I think that has to be done in tandem with what else is on the near-term work plan as well.
Okay,
So, yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Jacobson?
Well, I think it behooves us being the big tent here, to be very candid about where we are, because I think people, the various sides of the thing want to believe what they want to believe, and some of the belief systems I think are probably not realistic. I don't know, for example, how soon a bike skills area is going to be in operation, assuming that the consultant says it can be there, and assuming that the council then appropriates money, and then it goes through the process of scheduling and executing the project. And there's no lack of energy on the subject from both sides, and I don't see that energy is going away. So I'm speaking here, I'm trying to think of a neat way out of it, and I can't think of a neat way out of it. But maybe the thing to do is to say to the council, the issue, the council needs to decide whether there needs to be a long-term or whether a bike skills area needs to be thought of in broader terms. I'm not doing very well with this, but the council will have to decide whether in the long term a bike skills area is appropriate here or it's appropriate someplace else, because it's going to come there and we're going to have to belly up to the bar and make that decision, as painful as it's going to be for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm totally mindful, Jason, of the stuff we got to do, and that trying to put another big thing in the 5-pound bag isn't a pleasant prospect. But
Yeah.
I guess that's the best I can do, but I think as a council person, I'm going to be insistent that we, get off the snide on this thing.
Mhm. Thank you. Commissioner Westberg?
So just to sum up, so we can move forward and off this topic. As far as the pros plan is concerned, are we in agreement that we would revise the language on, at least on page 122, if not on the other one, to reflect more accurately where we are now in this process, and then also indicate, per the discussion we've had, that long-term the council should consider initiating a full public review process to determine if there is a better location for that function, or some related function. A pump track was mentioned, something like that.
Mhm.
And then also highlighted it in the memo. Is that where we're at?
Yes, that's what I have in my notes as well.
Okay. All right. I want to open it up to the other council members who haven't said very much tonight. If you have any comments at all about where we're at with the pros plan stuff, if you before we move on. All right, so the second half of this item is the memo, and it's suggested having a subcommittee work on this. I am happy to be on that subcommittee. But it would, who else would like to be basically on this subcommittee with me to get this done so that we can have it finished in time for January, so that it all can go, we can all review it at the next meeting.
I'm sorry, Jody, a subcommittee to work on the.
Yes, to work on the handoff memo.
Of the pros plan to the city council.
Exactly, yes. To make sure that we have included all of the things that we talked about here and also put it in our own voice. We have the, initial one that's been written up here. Oh, Councilmember Jacobson wants to be on my commission. On my committee. My subcommittee.
With my former neighbor, the chairman.
Exactly.
I'm happy to help if you wish. And happy not to be involved. Probably more happy not to be involved, but this bringing this great work project to fruition is something that I have emotional and temporal investment in. So I'm willing to do some more.
Jody, are you talking about kind of an ad hoc group, or one where we'd have to go through all of the formal rigmarole of subcommittee meetings and making them public and all of that?
Jason, what are the rules about that?
Ryan, you popped on. Go ahead, Ryan. You want to answer it, Ryan? You popped your screen on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think Councilmember Jacobson muted me there. No, to answer your question, Jody, they don't have to be public meetings. They can be private because it would be less than a quorum.
And the intent is to be more of an ad hoc, right? Small, 2 or 3 members that can help take in the feedback we received tonight, the discussion, and craft that memo, that cover memo that is the commission voice, not a staff voice, because this handoff is coming from the commission to the council. This is the body of work that you have spent countless hours working on for the last 3 years. So this needs to come from your voice. So I will remind the commission though that our next commission meeting is January 6th. So Meryl will pop up on the screen. That means the memo has to be completed by the Thursday before the commission meeting. So that would be December 30th.
Yes, I believe December 30th, we'll get the packet out to everybody that Friday. So it's out for a week before our meeting. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. You can use the bones of what, we drafted.
Yeah, I think it should be done honestly before the 24th, because realistically, we're probably not going to get a lot done at the end of this year. But anyways, Commissioner Stark.
Yeah, I was holding back, hoping somebody else would want to volunteer, but if nobody else
Well,
does.
everybody wants to help, but they're just shy.
Well, I'm happy to join. Otherwise, I'm happy to just send in my comments as well. So either way works for me.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think any and all is helpful. Commissioner Westberg?
Yeah, I'll help. I'll either way, either by helping draft or summarizing comments or whatever you need.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm just going to consider everybody wants to help in their own way, and they're going to email me quietly later about it. Commissioner Cohen.
Well, Ryan may have some thoughts on the process for getting information to you. I know I sent a very small number of comments on the draft memo to Merrill on Saturday, and thinking that they would, as I've been instructed in the past, to funnel things through them, but I don't want to speak for Ryan or city people. So I assume Merrill or Ryan will forward my stuff to you, Jody, and I don't know how you want to deal with the other ones.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. So Ryan, just doing a clarification thing. So should people email comments to Merrill and then she'll forward them to me, or can people be free to comment directly to me?
I would encourage people to funnel them through Merrill. We'll compile them for you and kind of put that package together. And Merrill is much more trustworthy than me, so please do include her.
Okay, very good, very good. And so I would say especially like tomorrow when it's all fresh in your mind, start writing things down.
And just Jody, Don Cohen, just to lower the tension level, my comments were relatively minimal. Some of them are consistent with some of what we talked about tonight, and then just a few things like to make the language more comfortable for coming from the commission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. All right. I think we are done item 2.
Should we set a deadline for getting comments to Merrill?
Yes. Okay, let's have the deadline be a week. So can we say everybody have it in by December 15th? That's actually the Wednesday, so it's one less than a week. And then that gives me a week to get it figured out before I'm not going to be doing it anymore. Does that work for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay, so I know that it's only 7:24 right now, but I'm thinking before we go on to our third item, maybe we should have our 10-minute break. And then unless we think that item number 3 is going to be less than 6 minutes long. Ryan popped up. He feels that we can do it in 6 minutes. So let's go to item number 3. The community center facility allocation and use policy.
All right, thank you, Chair McCarthy. I'm joined by consultant Emily Moon. Just as a reminder, this policy was in front of the commission earlier in October and guides the purposeful allocation and appropriate use of the facility space at the community center, as well as which groups get priority for that usage. This is a very important policy for your community center. So it is, I appreciate the time that we've taken on this, and it does inform our operations as we move into the 2022 season and year. The commission at the October meeting did provide input which can be found in your packet that's with the red line version. Most notably, the commission provided some consensus toward changing the policy to include activities that allow for commercial sales and entrance fees. So that's included in the new updated policy for you to review. Emily, is there anything to kind of add from your standpoint?
I'll just say first to new commissioners, hello, I'm Emily. I've been working with the team for the past year. Ryan, all that I would say that differs just slightly from the way that you put it is we left open 2 questions, I think. With that discussion in October, we sent you a memo to follow up on those questions. We actually made a slight pivot from the original draft where commercial sales were not allowed. After doing a little bit more discussion with all of you and behind the scenes and even more research and kind of talking about how frequently commercial sales had occurred or had been problematic even for the city, we are making a recommendation now to allow commercial sales, but with certain conditions attached. And those conditions really are just to ensure that business licenses have been attained if needed, and that the use is not, or the commercial sales are not inconsistent with the department's mission values and other uses that are happening in the facility. So that's our recommendation for the one substantive change. The second question that was left open was whether or not the city should attempt to take a share of any revenue that was generated from those commercial sales. And it's our recommendation not to go down that road. While we told you in October, we felt that the city would have the ability to do that and administratively could make it happen. It is not without some administrative challenges, and quite frankly, and you'll see this in the memo, not many cities, especially not many cities, Mercer Island side, do this. So we feel it's just one kind of unnecessary step to take at this time. And again, we don't anticipate many commercial sales activities happening in the building to begin with. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right.
Awesome.
Does not look like anybody has a question. So commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the MIT?
Excuse me.
Done.
Well, Don Cohen, I mean, I have a question that I was going to pose to Ryan because he and I communicated about it. So I don't know whether I should propose it, and whoever wants to answer it can answer it. May I?
Yes.
Right. So I still don't understand what consistency or inconsistency with division, purpose, mission, and customer expectations would be. And I posed a few things to Ryan, and I asked him, I told him I was going to do this to see, all right, how do you think staff would make a decision on this? For example, I gave him a couple of examples. How about clothing? Okay, sports clothing, all right, that one may be easy. How about clothing that is unrelated to sports, if you can even define that? Another one is food, good food, junk food. Is that consistent or not consistent? Would it be approved or not? Third, health supplements, senior memory boosters. You see these ads for Prevagen on the television, or sleep aids, or whatever it might be, those kinds of things. So some of them that were easier when I was talking to Ryan are somebody selling baseball cards. That one seemed sort of like a no-brainer. Sports equipment, that seemed like a no-brainer. But some of these became a little more nuanced, and I wasn't sure how they would come down. And I wasn't sure what the customer expectation reference in that phrase meant either. Which customer, the one seeking to be there, or other customers? So that's my question that I wanted to pose.
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that. In doing so, what I would say is the language is broad for a reason. So it maintains the flexibility for staff to make that judgment. I'd also say that the test isn't whether or not those sales are consistent with mission, vision, values, expectations, all of that, but rather a test of, is it inconsistent? So we're looking for, the 0.1% probably item that we want to exclude, as opposed to having to screen for inclusion. So we think this is more often than not, those commercial sales will be allowed. It would be, I think, a very extreme, irregular request that would not be permitted.
So to follow up, does that mean all the ones that I mentioned would likely be approved?
I believe so.
I would just chime in. This is Ryan. The other part of that is the process for going through and applying for that rental. And so there's a lot of like with how all of the different rental groups that you named off, those are individual groups, but how those groups may impact the facility could change how that decision is made.
And Ryan, I would also add, remember, you have other safeguards here in this policy. You have verbiage about trying to make sure that there's not overuse, not over access. So you're not going to allow a business to stand up its business and rent out the facility on a regular basis to the extent that other uses are prohibited, excluded from being there. So it will cut down on the number of applications that are received for strictly the purpose of commercial sales.
Okay. Now, commissioners, may I have a motion? Oh, Peter wants to say something. Commissioner Sharp. Are you motioning that yes, you're going to do my motion?
Yeah, I will, but just to follow up on Commissioner Cohen, I mean, I sympathize, quite frankly, with some of the concerns he's raised and so forth. And, one of the thoughts I had was, I think, we'd probably be here all night trying to figure out what's good or what's bad. And I'm not sure that that's probably a good use of our time. But what I would suggest is perhaps we would want the staff to come back and, minimum 6, probably 9 months or something, or a year, and just kind of say, hey, here's how it's gone, and we really haven't had any, close calls or tough issues, or maybe we have, I don't know. But I would be curious to kind of see how it all goes out. And as Emily mentioned early on, I mean, or Ryan, I mean, this is a very small percentage of the pie. So I just don't think it's probably going to, quote unquote, get out of hand in any meaningful way. So with that comment, I will be happy to move that the commission recommend to City Council what do I want to call it? I don't have the number.
To approve the MICEC facility allocation and use policy.
Facilities allocation or allocation program.
Okay, and is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Commissioner Westberg seconds. Okay, there's a motion by Vice Chair Struck and a second by Commissioner Westberg. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones, and will the city staff please conduct a roll call?
Chair McCarthy?
Aye.
Vice Chair Struck?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen?
Aye.
Commissioner Birkenwald? Commissioner Westberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Markson?
Aye.
Commissioner Burstein?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Chair, if I might.
Yes.
I'll just echo our commitment to reporting back on how things are going on all these changes that we're making concurrent with the reset strategy.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Emily. All right. So the motion passes and the minutes are approved. Now, here's a question for us all. Do we want to have our 10-minute break and come back, or how long are the next things going to take, Ryan? Is it worth taking 10 minutes?
This is Ryan. I would recommend not unless so the items, I'll just clarify, the items listed under other business are in memo format and provided to you just, for review. They're not necessarily discussion items unless you have specific questions and would like to pull those and bring those forward to me. That would be more than fine. And then the department report could be rather quick.
Okay, well, I say let's keep going then.
Does anyone have any questions on the specifically on the planning and meeting schedule update that was provided in the packet or the 2022 fee schedule that was provided?
Commissioner Westberg?
On the planning and meeting schedule, I just wondered whether we should reflect as far as the May meeting, that's typically when we have our elections for, according to our bylaws, for chair and vice chair. And it's also when the any commissioner whose term is ending, it ends at the end of that month. And then the June meeting is the meeting where we welcome potentially any new members.
Absolutely. That sounded like a recommendation coming from someone whose term may be closing out.
I'll have to double check.
Yes, excellent additions. And I should mention that with the planning schedule, this is something I do anticipate providing each meeting so that the commission can see where we're headed. This year, that was the plan, and chaos ensued and everything kind of got jumbled up. So we never got consistent. But that is the plan as we move forward, that this will be a document within each of your council meetings. So you can just take a look and have a check of where we're headed. And similar to what Commissioner Westberg did, make some recommendations if so needed to add items to that planning schedule. Okay, with that, I will move to the department report, if that works for everyone. Let me know, please, if you or when you can see my screen. Number 2.
We can see it.
All right. Does it look like a really nice pergola lit up?
Yes, we can see your whole screen, including the side. It's not on
Oh,
it's not on slideshow.
we even tested this.
Well, Ryan's figuring that out. I just want to put a plug in for the train install tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I think that's going to be pretty cool to see that. They're like 12,000 pounds for each section. So should be pretty cool. I'm going to be there.
Is that showing up for you guys now?
No.
Trouble. I apologize.
You've stopped sharing, Ryan, just so you know.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. My monitors went black. Showing now.
It is.
There you
go.
Even correctly this time?
Correctly.
Yay. All right. Thank you for your patience. So moving forward, Paul West informed me that we have a Luther Burbank doc subcommittee next week on the 16th at 8 a.m. So put that coffee on early, and that will be via Zoom. The meeting will be moving forward with the subcommittee to discuss developments on the recommendation to the full commission. It's anticipated that this could come forward as soon as January. So we'll be on the lookout for that. That kind of plays into that planning schedule that we discussed earlier. And this meeting will also be viewable by the public and also posted to the city's YouTube channel. For more info or to log into that meeting, if you're a member of the public, that link is listed below. Mercerdale Playground, and the chair just gave a heads up on this one. The train sculpture, it arrived tonight or is arriving tonight and will be unloaded at 7 a.m. So, you know, I guess around here in the Parks and Rec department, we do things early in the morning. So 7 a.m. Should be a little chilly, but come on down and check out that install if you're available. The prep work on the site has been completed. And that new equipment is scheduled to arrive in late December, so later on this month. Once that equipment's installed, the poured in place rubber, that coating that replaces the wood chips that everyone could not stand, that will be replaced, or that will be installed later in December, toward the end of December, as well as the synthetic grass. The plan is to have an opening sometime in early 2022. What that means is hopefully it's an opportunity for us to celebrate and party a little bit. So we will, the Recreation Division will be working on some things to do some sort of a ribbon cutting when that date can be confirmed. And more information for the project is listed below. Community Center, things are happening. You just approved a critical policy for us, or endorsed, I should say. We will have a temporary closure Christmas Eve, December 24th through January 2nd. And this is typically a closure that we had done every year for about 2 to up to 3 weeks. Luckily, I should say, we only need to use a week this year to get prepared for 2022. During that time, we'll be doing some work on the floors and getting the facility all, we'll call it spruced up for that reopening. That reopening leads to expanded hours. So those are listed there. And frankly, it completely changes the way this facility is operating. You're getting your community center back as opposed to just a gym and an art gallery right now. So there will be opportunities for the community to come in, hang out free of charge, gather, get together with other community members, as well as start utilizing the rental opportunities that we offer through the gym, the dance room, and one of our meeting rooms. We do still have at the community center, a few of the public works maintenance teams are still utilizing the facility, as is the thrift shop donation processing site. So more to come. We'll have some information coming out in the next week or two that's specifically updating what the schedule will be for the facility. And Commissioner Struck, I think I see your hand.
Yeah, just real quick. So with the expanded hours in January and so forth, on a percentage basis, I mean, how far back are we? Are we at kind of 50% now, 75? Just top of the head thing. If you don't know, that's fine too, but I'm just curious.
Far back, and I'd ask for a clear, far back on.
Well, in terms of full operation.
I wouldn't have a percentage necessarily. The hours are what they were pre-pandemic.
Okay.
So hours of usage available for access to the facility are the same as they were pre-pandemic. What's not available, I should say, at the facility is the Mercer room and a few of those meeting rooms that are housing the public works crews. That will change. Our anticipation is May, that those rooms will be back open and available to the community to use.
Thank you.
Illuminate MI. This, if you have had a chance to drive through Town Center or check out the sculpture gallery, it looks really good. It's we've been running a ton of programs or events and opportunities downtown. It's worked out really well from when we started it last year to where we've expanded this year. It is something I believe the community greatly appreciates. We had the opportunity to partner with Shabbat Mercer Island and hosted Hanukkah at Mercerdale Park. It's not every day we have a fire dancer at one of our parks or a giant ice sculpture, but it was a really well coordinated event by Shabbat Mercer Island, and it's just a great partnership. And it's a great example of the things that we can do as a city, where we're in coordination with other user groups or other providers that have the resources to offer some of these things that maybe at this point we don't necessarily have that. So thank you to them. It was a wonderful event. If any of you had a chance to get down there, there was no rain. It was good. The Merchant Walk, I can't say there was no rain at this one. This was one of the wettest events or activities I've been a part of, but it was well received. There was music, there was Santa there. We had a booth downtown. We coordinated with the Chamber of Commerce, and it all came together really well. So if you had a chance to get down, thank you for checking that out. And it's another one of those opportunities that we'll continue to build on. Now for the things that are coming up. Another partnership, and that's really what this event has turned into, is working with the Preschool Association, who's doing their Holiday Lights driving tour again. Proceeds benefit the YFS Food Bank as well as their emergency assistance program. MIPA has done, they've just done so many different great things for us throughout the year, and continue to do so with the Holiday Lights. So please take a look at the map, and if you're so inclined, pick one up. And then also our partnership with the JCC. They stepped up as a sponsor this year as well, and are also offering their Celebrate the Festival of Lights at their facility. So those dates and times are listed down there below. And of course, we have the MyBall Holiday Show here at the Community Center, well received. There's a picture there on the right. I don't know if my thing is in the way, but that's Chris. He is our recreation facility supervisor, meeting with some people who came to visit the MyBall show. That's been a really well-received holiday show here at the facility, and it's been very unique this year in that we don't have that general passive use of the facility, so we can really see the numbers of individuals who are coming in to check out that show. And so that'll be something when we recap this event at the conclusion. We'll be talking about that a little bit with the Parks Commission on, this is a usage that we're seeing. And I know that the Arts Council is also very interested in those specific numbers to people coming in and treating the community center as a destination to check out the artwork. We also have a storybook walk at Mercerdale Park with the dates and times listed there. That kicks off this weekend. We'll have carolers at the thrift shop, and of course the MIHS choir performing at Mercerdale Park on next Thursday. Tons of events. Please check out the link below. And then just a huge thank you to our Illuminate MI sponsors. The title sponsors each contributed over $3,000. We couldn't do this without them. And then we have the event sponsors who supported just as well. And it's really, we haven't raised as much as we had in the last year for this event. And part of that is the changes that came about. But without these sponsors and many in the public who provided donations, this wouldn't be an event that would be possible. And to carry an event through an entire month with the amount of opportunities that we've put forward has been really successful thus far. And so we'll continue to review and see where this ends up in future years as well. Ooh, whoops. There we go. With that, back to you, Chair McCarthy, and I have black screens and can't really see much right now.
All right, so the seventh item of business is commissioner reports. Does anybody have anything that they would like to share with the group today? Commissioner Stark.
Yes, thank you. Just a shout out to John L. Scott. I don't know if you saw in the Mercer Island Reporter, I think it was last week, they have a 2-page full ad for their business, but they had a word search puzzle of all of the Mercer Island parks, excuse me. It was a fun little thing to do, and so just kudos to them for putting that together. Thank you.
That's really awesome. All right, does anybody else have any thing to report? Commissioner Cohen.
Just a compliment to staff. For those of us, I guess all of us students who walk the trails a lot, when I see things that catch my eye, I can text or email staff, and if it's a public works related thing, it would be Elaine Summergren or Jason. If it's something more policy oriented, it might be Paul West. I always include Ryan on these things. And I always get very rapid responses, and they get right on things. So that there was a bunch of stuff going on in Island Crest Park last week, and I didn't know if somebody was in there cutting down huge trees or not. It turns out they were just knocking down blackberry bushes, city contractor and everything. And there was another thing where a huge tree, a couple trees had fallen down at the bottom of 59th Street. And but anyway, just a compliment to about their promptness and professionalism.
Thank you. All right. If no one else has anything to say, then I think that we will adjourn our meeting. So the next regular Parks and Recreation Commission meeting is January 6th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. The time is now 7:52 and the meeting is adjourned. However, as a reminder to commissioners, please stay seated until the city staff has terminated the Zoom broadcast. Good evening and stay safe and healthy.
Thanks, Chair McCarthy. I'm going to stop the recording.